I've tried every single so-called cure.
Will new assisted death laws offer relief or go too far?
Only 1 in 3 people in Canada have access to the mental health care they need.
The only way to stop this is to kill myself.
Some view it as a victory for patient rights. Others see it as state-sanctioned suicide. Canada will soon become one of the most liberal countries in the world when it comes to who can legally end their lives with the help of a nurse or a doctor. Avis Favreau explores a controversial new move to expand just who can apply for a medically assisted death to include those who are struggling with a mental illness.
Those Canadians up top, we really like them and we call them kind, but they're going a little bit loony if you ask me right now. Again, if you have a mental illness, which will probably lead you to be, have certain ideations, yeah, that still go ahead, because it's not the ideation that's making you do it. It's just you want to. It's a scary world.
John Scully is about to do something he's wanted to do for years. Try to end his life.
I just said, I've had enough of this. It was just a cold, simple decision. I've got to stop this. And the only way to stop this is to kill myself.
But before the overdose can kill him, he calls his wife and says goodbye. Panicked, she phones 911 and he's rushed to hospital to have his stomach pumped.
And when you woke up, you had an interaction with the physician.
He said, "Why did you do this? Was this a call for help?" And I wanted to punch the guy. A cry for help? No, I wanted to die.
That was 2006. Since then, John has tried to kill himself again. After each suicide attempt, doctors and nurses revived him. That's what they're supposed to do when someone wants to end their life. But now some say that is about to change.
We're ready.
You ready to begin?
Yes.
At first, only Canadians like Ray Cole were allowed to have a medically assisted death. W5 was at his bedside in February 2022, when with the help of a doctor and his wife by his side, he started the drugs to end his life. He had terminal cancer with just months to live. Medical assistance in dying, or MAID, became legal for patients like him in 2016.
If that's not some tool, I like to make sure I don't comment on things that are probably outside of my understanding. I can understand what it's like to be someone who's terminally ill, but I can't understand what it's like to know that your life is finite. Okay? And I can imagine feeling as if, you don't have much left to go. And if you're in pain and you're suffering, I can understand the feeling. But at the same time, my beliefs, my morals, my values can't allow me to think, well, I'm going to end it sooner. Because that's like, in my opinion, for me personally, that feels like giving up, That feels like a whole lot of giving up. Not just yourself, but on your family. You treasure every moment you have. I wouldn't trade them for anything.
Got it?
I'm good to go?
Safe travels, my friend.
Goodbye, my friends. I love you guys.
5 years later, the law changed to include people with chronic illnesses like John Priddle. He wasn't dying, but qualified because he had an incurable physical illness with an advanced state of decline and intolerable suffering.
It would give me quite a bit of peace of mind to realize that it's not just an option, but medical assistance and die may be there if I think I need it.
If you need it.
At 81, John Scully's high blood pressure won't make him eligible for an assisted death, but his PTSD and depression soon will. Canada's MAID law is about to change again. In March 2023, those with mental illnesses as a sole underlying condition will become eligible and John says he'll be among the first in line to apply. A man who spent most of his life trying to stay alive in war zones is now pushing for his right to end it.
There were bodies on the streets, bodies in the rivers.
For over 60 years,
That's really sad. That is extraordinarily sad. I just believe that the truth is, and the fact still remains, that if he didn't have that depression, he'd want to live. If he didn't have that inner turmoil of the past still chasing him, he'd want to live. That doesn't change. Still, you're dealing with someone who is ill. You don't feed into the illness. You try to give them peace. And I don't mean peace as in giving them what the illness is making them want. That makes no sense to me. You know? It's like, oh, you can't come up with any examples for that. But again, you don't feed into that.
this award-winning TV
That's
news
crazy.
producer worked behind the scenes. In some of the most violent and dangerous places in the world, like for W5 on Stories on the conflicts in the Middle East.
All the time I was suppressing it with these adrenaline rushes of going to wars. I've been to 78 countries and 35 war zones.
But the horrors took a toll.
Post-traumatic.
Post-traumatic stress disorder, yeah.
In 1986, he was diagnosed with severe depression, followed by post-traumatic stress disorder.
Tell me what it's like to suffer from chronic mental illness.
Incurable mental illness is my definition. I wake up sick and loathing the day that's to come. I'm in fear of the day that's to come because during the night I've had horrific nightmares and anxiety dreams that fill me with sweat and dread.
Did any treatment work? You've tried everything.
Everything. There's nothing to try for me, nothing left. I've tried every single so-called cure, in quotes. I've tried, there's nothing I haven't tried that I know of.
And you know, when he says that, what popped into my mind is when we think about, and I'm not comparing his life or any human life to an animal, but what comes to my mind is when we think about our animals and our pets when they reach a certain stage where it's like, you know what, there's nothing we could do for them. And we say what we're doing is giving them mercy. You know, we don't want them to suffer. We don't want them to live the rest of their life in pain and suffering. And that I understand if it's terminal, but I just believe a human life is different. I believe a human life is worth saving even at its lowest state. Call that inhumane if you want, but that's my belief. I think there's a lot of messaging out there that will lead people to believe that the humane thing is to take a life. And my that doesn't compute for me. That makes no sense to me, you know? I find situations like these to be tremendously sad. Honestly, because again, if what he's saying is true and he's tried everything in the world and nobody could just dope him up with some morphine for the rest of his life, you know, and give him some type of peace. If that's what's the case, then that's a horrible existence, you know? I 100% agree. That's truly a horrible existence. I just feel as if there's always something else. And he should never give up.
John's been in a Toronto psychiatric hospital 7 times. He's tried electroconvulsive therapy 19 times. He now takes dozens of pills just to get through the day. And after 35 long years of treatment, still no improvement.
I'm thinking, that's why I'm choosing MAID, because I don't want to botch it again. I screwed up twice trying to kill myself.
In a matter of months, doctors like Ellen Wiebe will be able to help patients like John Scully. The Vancouver physician has helped over 400 Canadians with physical illnesses die with medical assistance.
Do you believe it should be expanded for this group?
How many did
Absolutely.
he say?
I mean, we're Canadians. We
Did
Do
she
you
say?
believe it should?
Physical illnesses like John Scully. The Vancouver physician has helped over 400 Canadians with physical illnesses die with medical assistance.
Do you believe it should be expanded?
You see how that slope is slippery? Because here we are talking about someone with a mental illness, and we're saying, well, you know, the mental illness is why this person wants this. So how can we allow someone to make a decision when they're clearly not in their right state of mind and they're mentally impaired, some would say, right? Physical pain. Who knows the extent of all 400 of these cases? But I can imagine that there are certain situations that someone could keep going. There's probably a medical procedure that they could get, probably can't afford, but it's still a possibility, which tells me it's not that they don't want to live. They're not happy with their life. They're not happy with their method of living. That I can get. That I understand. But again, it's not because they don't want life. It's because they don't want the pain of life. There's a differentiation there, and we need to always search for the peace that we can give these people. And the peace isn't death.
For this group?
absolutely. I mean, we're Canadians. We have rights, and mental illness and physical illness both can cause unbearable suffering, and it's up to the person themselves to decide whether that suffering is truly unbearable and that they want to have assistance to die.
Almost 2 million Canadians live with serious mental illnesses and could be candidates for MAID. People like Ezra McKenzie, age 34, Debbie Rajarani, 58, and Mitchell Tremblay, who is 40.
Just show by hand, how many of you are planning to access MAID when it becomes legal?
Wow.
I've wanted to die since I was 11, and when I was 17 was the first time I acted on it. And I have not stopped since. There's been 7 or 6 times. I've been hospitalized about 14, 15 times, and I've tried almost 50 medications.
Why?
This is the entire list. And I'm giving up.
I don't want that stigma for my kids. I want them to know that their mom made a decision based on very sound mind. I want them to know that their mom is.
That was my whole point. How can you say someone's making a decision on a sound mind when they're also in a category of mental illness? How? How is that a sound mind?
Jumping off a balcony. It's been a long journey, and my God, at 8 years old, if I can't say enough is enough, then we are not living in a democracy.
When you have a swing down, it's like your whole body is on fire and someone's telling you it'll get better. I want the ability to end the suffering when I go downhill.
Bottom line is, there's going to be a lot of Canadians like yourself that will choose this.
You know, absolutely everyone should be able to access this, but there's so many people on disabilities that have been ignored for so long. There's going to be a rush for the doors, like you're saying, for this. There's going to be a rush for it.
Coming up,
He should be allowed that dignity.
can better treatment convince patients to keep going?
Would I like there to be better mental health treatments in this country? Yes, of course.
When W5 continues.
I'm going to leave it there because I want you guys to go and watch the rest of this if your mind and your heart is into this. You know, I'm not telling anybody to undertake anything they can't handle. But again, that was my exact same thought. A lot of these people, I don't believe they want to end their life just because life is just, oh, I don't care about it anymore. It's because there's a measure of pain and suffering that makes life no longer worth living to them. And if those pains and those struggles were alleviated, they would want to live. So it's not about, oh, I just don't want my life anymore. It's I don't want this kind of life anymore. They still want life. That's all I got to say on this one, guys. This is a pretty touchy subject, and I try not to, make it go too long. But yeah, go check out the rest of the video. I'll leave a link to it in the description below. Thank you for checking out this video, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Peace and love to the family. Peace.